Greetings, my fellow Fright Fiends. It's your buddy Boogeyman Ben here for a new episode of Boogeyman Ben's Horror Zone, and this is my second Women of Horror segment. Now, I did my first Women of Horror segment back in May of this year. I did that on Kathy Bates, and I initially had wanted to do at least 1 to 2 of these a month. That didn't happen, and the segment ended up getting kind of pushed to the wayside. But to close out 2018, I wanted to make sure I tackled the second one I had wanted to do that I already planned out, and that was going to be focusing on Shelley Duvall. She was in one of the most iconic horror films, one of the most well-known horror films of all time. That's The Shining by Stanley Kubrick, adapted from the novel by Stephen King. When most people talk about The Shining, they talk about Jack Nicholson, they talk about other elements within the film, like the woman in the bathtub, the twins, or Stanley Kubrick's amazing direction. But what a lot of people do not talk about is Shelley Duvall. A lot of people have criticized her performance, especially because it goes against the book. It's not exactly like King wrote the character, but then most of what was in The Shining was kind of readapted to fit sort of Kubrick's idea of how the story should play out on film. Now, growing up in the 80s, being a little kid in the 80s, I knew Shelley Duvall from things like Fairy Tale Theater, which was something that she hosted, and I knew her from the movie Popeye, where she played Olive Oyl. I didn't see The Shining in all of its glory in terms of like seeing it from start to finish until I was in my late teens, early 20s. It was something that really wasn't on cable a lot when I was a kid, and when it was, I usually caught the very end of it, so not really being completely engrossed into it. Plus, I was terrified of Jack Nicholson as a kid. The commercials for The Shining, I still remember seeing, even though the movie came out when I was, like, I believe 6 or 7 years old. The trailers for that, or the commercials for that, absolutely terrified me, and for the longest time I couldn't watch Jack Nicholson in anything. Now, The Shining was a very arduous shoot. Of course, most of Kubrick's films were, because he liked to do multiple takes. One thing of note is the scene where Jack Nicholson says the famous line, "Here's Johnny," and breaks through the bathroom door to get to Wendy. That took 3 days to shoot, and they went through 60 doors that he had to break down with an axe. Shelley Duvall was treated very differently on the set of The Shining. You can see this in Vivian Kubrick's amazing documentary, which was one of the only documentaries that shows Stanley Kubrick directing the making of The Shining, which is available on this DVD, and it's also on the Blu-ray as well. But there's also a DVD that was available on the Stanley Kubrick box set, and it's called A Life in Pictures. And in both documentaries, specifically the one that Vivian Kubrick shot, you see how Jack Nicholson was treated and how Shelley Duvall was treated. Jack Nicholson was treated like royalty, whereas Shelley Duvall was constantly belittled by Kubrick. So much to the point where she became physically ill on the set and started losing her hair. She started pulling her hair out and suffered through nervous exhaustion throughout the shoot. Kubrick would oftentimes lose his temper with her, saying that she was wasting everyone's time. Vivian Kubrick even says in the commentary on the documentary that Kubrick's method of madness was to constantly make Duvall feel like she was isolated, that she was on her own. It was a way to sort of bring this performance out of her. They're trying to make her feel utterly hopeless, so there was no sympathy given to her on the set at all. It really shocks me that The Shining was not well received when it came out, besides the fact that Stephen King has always been critical of the film because Kubrick changed so much of his screenplay. The film was actually nominated for 2 Razzies, one for Shelley Duvall's performance and one for Stanley Kubrick's direction. Both, the film did not win a Razzie. Shelley Duvall, I feel like, has always been picked on the most when people say that there are so many things wrong with this film, especially when they're defending Stephen King's book, which I also love. I love even the miniseries, which I think is a much more faithful adaptation of it, but this film is so amazing. And I don't think enough credit is given to Shelley Duvall and the role that she played in this film. Like I said, she wasn't treated like Jack Nicholson was. She was put into a constant state of panic throughout the entire film because Kubrick wanted her to be this woman that has been beaten down, especially by this unpredictable alcoholic husband that she has. And you see that so much in her performance, where she's trying to make excuses. Even when she's talking to the doctor that comes to visit Danny, she tries to play off the fact that Jack dislocated Danny's shoulder when he tried to pull him up from the ground, and that, oh yeah, but he's been clean of alcohol for 6 months, and all she's trying to do is keep herself and her son safe. I mean, throughout the film, you just see her always trying to keep the peace with Jack. Everything from making him breakfast, to talking to him about his writing, to trying to just always keep things peaceful and being understanding and kind. She never raises her voice to him or never talks ugly to him. She's always just trying to be as nice as possible because of the safety of her and her son. She's now isolated in this hotel with just the three of them, and he's already an unstable person. You can tell that from frame one, when you see him walk into the hotel, and even the scene where he calls her on the phone to tell her he's got the job. You can just see the resentment that he feels towards her and his son. And she's sort of the last light to keep them alive, keep them safe. And I really think she deserves so much more praise for that performance than she gets. And the Vivian Kubrick documentary showcasing how Kubrick treated Shelley Duvall, I think the first time I watched it, it elicited laughs from me a little bit, because I kind of was one of those guys that watched it thinking, oh yeah, okay, she was just being difficult on set. But just imagine that you're being treated like this by a director. You're isolated. Everybody else is on this director's side. You're all by yourself. And you're being treated differently from everybody else in the cast. You're being talked down to. You're being humiliated. You're being yelled at. You're being told that you're wasting everyone's time. That would cause anybody to go through the physical ailments that she went through during the filming. So I think the fact that she went through all that and gave the performance that she did, she should be, I think, talked about in much more favorable light and actually hoisted as high as Jack Nicholson, who has praised her performance as one of the best performances by an actress that he's ever seen. I don't think enough praise has been given to the work that she has done. And I wanted to take this time to just thank her for this amazing role, for this amazing performance. Yes, it's different from King's Book. It's different from the miniseries where Rebecca De Mornay played Wendy Torrance. It was much more in tune with the book, but I think this performance, there's so much power and there's so much in things that she doesn't say. You can just see the wear on this woman. And yes, it was influenced by Kubrick, but it just shows what a strong actress Shelley Duvall was. She went toe-to-toe with Jack Nicholson, showed that she is a strong woman by finally standing up to him at the end of the film. She's there to protect her son and all of this craziness that was going on at the Overlook Hotel. I just absolutely love her performance in The Shining, and I don't think enough people talk about it, and I don't think enough people give it praise, and I wanted to take this time to do that. So yeah, just wanted to pay tribute to Shelley Duvall and her amazing performance as Wendy Torrance in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Let me know if you're a fan of her performance. And thank you so much for supporting Boogeyman Ben's Horror Zone. I'll promise I'll try to do some more of these in 2019. Let me know what you think of this segment. I'd appreciate that. Also, hit me up on my social media links. They are down below. And stay tuned for some more great content coming real soon. Take it easy. Stay scared as always. I have a Patreon page. If everybody wants to help support me, the link is down below. And if you do help support me, Dracula here will get more treats. And Dracula really loves his treats. So any support that you can give me would be very, very much appreciated. Right, Drac?